aliens to ghosts, demons to angels, and from shadow people to the outlandish. Heidi Hollis is the Outlander.
Welcome everybody to my awesome Friday evening. You're listening to me, Heidi Hollis, the Outlander. So welcome to the show, everybody. Get comfortable, put your feet up. Just enjoy, relax. I am going to tell you some wonderful things about this program. If you don't know what the show is about, this show is about bringing outlandish and interesting topics to the forefront, from aliens, angels, ghosts, demons, holy encounters, shadow people, to Bigfoot, to the outlandish. I always say if it's weird, we're here, and now you are too, so you are among friends. If you do not know who I am, when it comes to the outlandish, personally, I'm someone who has been there, seen that, experienced it, freaked out, found some answers, wrote about it, got over it, and now I'm hoping to help others do the same darn thing and understand this kooky world of ours that we love. So I welcome you to go to my main website, which is HeidiHollis.com. Sound it out. I'm not even going to spell it. There you're going to find some things about me that my parents don't even know, and I am very proud. I want to tell you guys also how you can hear this program. Get the wonderful Inception Radio Network app, IRN app. Most of you guys do listen to the show through that, which is why a lot of folks don't tend to call in live, because they're sitting there listening to it after the show has aired already. But it's all good. But I welcome you. Get it, because then you can listen to all the shows. That's pretty fantastic. And you could also listen to this entire network by just dialing a number, 401-283-6700. And I also welcome you guys, to the ones of you that are conscious right now listening, to call into the show and ask your questions, make your comments, 1-888-919-2355, or go onto Skype, find Inception Radio Network, and send your comments and questions there. And then we have this wonderful thing called a chat room. Go figure. Those are fun. Go to irnchat.com, and you can listen to the show, and you can chat live. And if you cap your questions and comments there, I will do my best to present it to the fantastic guest of the evening. So I am going to once again forego my outlandish corner, where I answer your comments and questions and emails in regards to anything and everything out of the ordinary. That is so much fun. And let me tell you, the emails are piling up. Keep them coming. I will dedicate a show fully to your emails. And so send them to dasoutlander@gmail.com. That's DAS Outlander@gmail.com. And yeah, so we're going to keep this party going. And I'm going to introduce my fantastic guest that I don't know why, but he feels kind of like a bro to me, like a brother. I don't know. He's just like kind of a character, and I just love this guy. So anyways, I am going to get to introducing this fellow, I swear, Joshua P. Warren, who is an investigator who pioneers the amazing relationship between mind, energy, matter, and strange phenomena. He owns the Asheville Mystery Museum and Laboratory in North Carolina and the Bermuda Triangle Research Base in Puerto Rico. Oh, I love it over there. The author of over 20 best-selling books, including Use the Force, A Jedi's Guide to the Law of Attraction, and The Wishing Machine Workbook. He has appeared on tons of TV shows, if you haven't seen him. Paranormal Paparazzi, that one was one of my favorites. He travels the world investigating mysterious phenomena, and he's made the cover of Science Journal in 2004 for lab experiments regarding energy fields in nature related to the Brown Mountain Lights. As the creator of the widely popular Wishing Machine Project, that's just very cool, he's helped thousands of people around the globe change their lives in profound ways, manifesting extremely good fortune. If you want to see some pretty darn cool photos and videos, please go to joshuapwarren.com. Everybody, please give a round of applause to my friend and yours, Joshua P. Warren. Oh, they're going crazy, Josh. How the heck are you?
I am doing great. So nice to be with you, Heidi. I've missed you so much. And first off, congratulations on the roaring success of this program. I love it, and so many people love it around the world. So it's just always a pleasure to be with you.
It's been wild. I mean, the show has just grown and grown, and I just have a good old time. I'm just sitting here drinking some coffee, eating some popcorn sometimes. I mean, I don't know. But my goodness, you've been awfully busy yourself. My goodness. I mean, I don't know how many things you've got your hands in, but I don't know how you do it. Let's just launch off. What on earth is the new thing for you as of late?
Well, obviously, I've been doing a lot of traveling. Since we last talked, I've worked on, I think, 4 different television series, 2 of which will be airing later this year. Been doing a lot of research here in the Bermuda Triangle. I even created an online paranormal investigator certification course, which just debuted in February. And fortunately, everybody has loved that. I mean, I've gotten students now around the world, so that's available. But the big thing right now is that I recently put out a video report which really has taken me about 4 years worth of work to accumulate, because when I first started coming down here to the Bermuda Triangle in Puerto Rico about 11 years ago, I realized that there was a lot of UFO and USO activity taking place here that was not necessarily making it back into the media in the U.S. mainland. And so little by little, I started putting some of these phenomena together, getting great video footage that people have never seen probably, and some really good pictures that have never been published before. And I assembled it all into this new video that I put out for free on YouTube. It's called OUFOs, A New Discovery. And oh boy, there's a lot to talk about with that one, and I know you've watched it. So, would you like to give your impression of what's going on here?
Yeah, that is pretty darn cool. I kind of like your angle, and like, is this something that has been around all the time, but our naked eye is just not able to follow it? Essentially, what you show and what seems to be described as a 3 to 5 foot UFO that's zippity-doo-dying around Puerto Rico in and out of the water, that has some strange appendages that may or may not be attached. I mean, it's pretty cool. I don't know. Do they come across as like drone-like to you, or?
Well, in the beginning, I was really scratching my head over these because, for those who haven't watched the video yet, and there's an easy link to it at joshuapwarren.com. If you just go there and click that, you'll find the video and other information. I start the video off by showing some footage shot by an actual Homeland Security thermal imaging camera at the nearby Aguadilla airport. And for people who may know a bit about Puerto Rico, if you look at the palm of your hand, that's sort of the shape of Puerto Rico. And in the upper northwestern corner, you have this town called Aguadilla. And so there in 2013, at about 9:20 p.m., one night in April, I believe. It could be August or April. I forget exactly. It starts with an A. But one of those months, the camera at the airport caught this object that looks roughly saucer-shaped, but it also is kind of irregular and almost has a shape-shifting appearance. It's zipping around the airport at up to 120 miles per hour. They immediately grounded all the flights. And the most spectacular thing is that as you watch this thing flying around without wings or rotors or any obvious propulsion, suddenly you see it dip seamlessly into the Atlantic Ocean, where it continues to zip at 95 miles per hour under the surface of the water as the camera continues tracking it. And then eventually it emerges from the water, but now it is joined by a second object. Those 2 objects fly around, and then they finally dip into the ocean one final time, and they never reemerge. Now, this footage was examined and authenticated and really just broken down in great detail by a group of mainstream scientists in this thorough 162-page report, which is absolutely fascinating. And, you know, Heidi, when I went to the site where those two UFOs dipped into the water, and I was standing there on the beach because I had to go down a little kind of rugged pathway down to this spot. And here I come out of this beautiful beach. There's hardly anybody around, big rocky, craggy cliffs with waves crashing on them. And I'm standing there envisioning what it would have been like to stand there that night and watch these objects flying around and then disappear into the water. It occurred to me that if suddenly all that water were gone, it would look sort of like that I was standing there almost on the edge of the Grand Canyon, because there's a huge trench that drops off there, except the Grand Canyon is only 6,000 feet deep, and this trench is almost 30,000 feet deep. Huh. It's so deep you could almost fit all of Mount Everest down in it. Just a little tip would be sticking up. It's the deepest point in the Atlantic Ocean. It's the second deepest point in the world, and so I'm imagining that there is something going on down in this trench, and that is some hardcore, rock-solid footage right there. And so I opened the video with that, but as it goes on, then I started realizing, okay, there are other things happening here on the island that connect to this, where people are having these sort of interactions with whatever these things are. And I don't know if we're talking about a ship with a little man inside at a steering wheel. I tend to think that maybe these things are actually some type of advanced biological form.
It makes more sense. I mean, these are little, unless we're talking about itty bitty little aliens. Who are we to say that they're not itty bitty?
Well, they certainly could be, and that's one of the things these scientists, they believe that object was 3 to 5 feet in diameter. But in these subsequent investigations where I was able to get, you know, all kinds of other data from other people about their experiences, what we found is that these particular UFOs, they don't look nicely structured like the typical flying saucers, so to speak, that we classically talk about in ufology. And one thing that surprised me was that I met a man who you can see in the video. His name's Daniel Velez. And he is a direct descendant of the Taino Indians, and those were the natives that were here on the island when Columbus came here in 1493. And he said that there's always been a tradition among his people of being able to go out and meditate in a certain way and make these things appear. And so, for one thing, not only were we able to go out and follow his instructions to a certain extent and do various experiments to get these things to appear on command, but furthermore, it occurred to me that the Taino Indians, they had these little objects that they called semis, and they were little idols that look a lot like a little stone Hershey kiss, with a face on it. And these were considered lesser gods that lived high up in the sky and in the mountains, and so it could be that there has been an awareness of those things here in Puerto Rico going back hundreds, if not thousands of years among the tribes. But then I end the video by showing a very similar phenomenon that's been captured and made the mainstream news in Denver, Colorado. So we're not talking about something that's strictly limited to the Bermuda Triangle, but something that occurs at various hotspots around the world. And it makes you wonder, Heidi, if some of these things are possibly zipping around us all the time, but some of them are moving so quickly that we don't necessarily get a good look at them, because who is pointing a camera up in the air and letting it run all day and then playing it back in slow motion to see what's flying around? Not many people are doing that.
Very true. It kind of reminds me of the phenomena of rods. You know, it's like one of those things that you're like, whoa, what was that? You know, you just so happen to spot something odd, and you rewind and you pause, and wow, it's kind of remarkable. I can't help but to I don't know. I wonder how much more widespread this really is, that people just, like, say, haven't come across what it is that you've discovered and put up online, and make connecting the dots. I wonder how you could gather up more reports. It's like just to see what people are seeing out there. And just ring them all in.
Yeah, I think for one thing, showing folks this footage and talking about the concept that many of these might be traveling around frequently but going too fast will inspire researchers to go out and do exactly what I just suggested. And what we really need is to get some of these super high-speed cameras and to put them in the sky at some of these hot spots, and then analyze in detail what we see flying around here. And I started calling these OUFOs, which means organic UFOs. And I'm not the first person to mention the possibility that some of these things flying around might be organic. But I also want to point out that when I say organic, I'm not really talking about what a lot of people might automatically presume I mean, because we're very egocentric. So we think of organic as resembling something nice and soft and fleshy like a human. But if you take a human and you grind that person up and look under a microscope, you find, and I'm sure you've done this, haven't we all? I mean,
of course, just a little bit here and there.
You have iron, copper, zinc, sulfur, magnesium. You have all these things that we usually associate with something that's inorganic. And so, and then when it comes to, look how weird life is. You have something as different from us as a tree. You have insects. You have lightning.
I thought you were going to say like a Trump. I'm sorry. Keep going.
You've got, I don't know what life form category we're talking about. We have, all kinds of different, things that don't necessarily resemble humans, but they still are considered living and conscious. And so therefore these might kind of blur the lines a little bit in that they don't fall into what we think of as being like a dog or a cat or whatever, but they still might themselves be conscious living things, and therefore they're sensitive to some degree to our consciousness and our wishes. And so that's the cool thing about this. If what I'm seeing here is a prominent enough trend, well, then that means that you don't just have to go out there and set up a camera a certain way and just sit back with your fingers crossed. There are actually some techniques you might be able to use in order to put out a request to get these things to appear, just like we did, and you can see our evidence there on camera.
Oh, I swear I had 3 separate incidences where I was able to call a UFO and it showed up. I didn't try anything special. I didn't know it would work each time. But it was just one of those things like, let's pay attention to our environment, on the last occasion. And I was like, lo and behold, what? There goes one. Oh, my goodness. And rather massive and just mind-blowing. But, I have this, and this is something that's often been described by others too, or it's like, they saw a UFO and they wanted to see the other side and they were thinking, gee, I wish it would turn left, and it turns left as it was paying attention. You hear these things all the time, so there is some psychic connection between these crafts and our wishes. I just wonder, what is the button that we push that's just right that's getting their attention? It's like, how'd that work? Can I do this all the time? Once it works, didn't you feel like that? Like, wow, every time I could come out here and this happens? How consistent has it been for yourself?
Well, for me, it hasn't been as consistent as it has for people who are doing this really just more for pleasure, because what I found is that when I go out to do this, I'm a little too serious about it, because I've gotten all my cameras and tripods and meters, and I'm all like, I'm set up to do business here. And most of the people who go out and really have luck with this, they just go out, they'll take a cell phone, and they'll just start recording video. They'll hold it out in front of them, close their eyes, take a few deep breaths, put out a mental invitation, and just kind of scan the horizon from right to left. And the thing is, when you play this back, it's very, very easy, especially, for those who don't know about my history. I've been analyzing images related to supposed paranormal phenomena for at least 25 years. It's easy to tell if you're looking at a bird or an insect or some of these, airborne particles. It's quite easy to rule those things out. When you see this stuff, it's outstanding. I mean, it's not like any of those things. And that's like, you mentioned rods, for example. I mean, even when the whole rod thing was picking up traction, immediately I would look at that and say, to me, this looks exactly like the wing beats of an insect. And at that time, especially the digital technology that we were using had a certain type of interlace. And also, your shutter speed makes an impact on that. But what you end up with is, if you have what amounts to kind of a motion blur from an insect or a moth or a butterfly, it creates that rod shape. And that's what the vast majority of so-called rods were. And as camera technology got better, people realized that, especially when they started catching them in nets and they were actually moths. But, aside from that, and these are something that are very different. And it makes you wonder if these are able to transition so easily in and out of the water, because that they are kind of shape-shifting and they're able to literally alter their shape on a molecular level right as they are bridging that gap from one medium to the other, or if these things might be sort of only partially in this dimension, so to speak, and therefore they're not interacting as fully as, say, a normal airplane would if it were traveling 120 miles per hour and hit the water. There would be a big splash. So there are all these questions that come up. And I'm not saying that I think that these are definitely organic, but I think that is something we should definitely look at and discuss and take into consideration.
Yeah. You know what I tell my friends when they want to go out someplace to see a UFO? I'm like, well, we do need a sacrifice. So, yeah, please come along. But with when you're describing these things as potentially being organic, I mean, when you see the video, it looks like, it's kind of splashing around in the water, having a little fun. And then it's like, ask for a friend to come join them. And, it pops out and there's two of them. And it's like, wow, did it really go and call one of its friends? It's just very fascinating. I put in the chat room a link to the video so people can check it out, and we'll definitely put it up on the website on your page when the interview's over. It's mind-blowing. I mean, and to have Homeland Security being the ones that provided the video, I mean, come on now. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, well, to me, that was one of the most outstanding aspects because, and by the way, whenever I get serious about doing some type of photo analysis, especially when I'm talking to individuals, I do not ever vouch for that image unless I have met the person who took it. The Homeland Security stuff's a little different because that footage was really sort of leaked, basically. I mean, I'm not sure how officially it came out, but Puerto Rico is kind of a small place, really. It's 100 miles by 35 miles, but there's 3.5 million people who live here, but they all kind of seem to know each other through a few degrees of separation. So when that footage was captured, boom, there was gossip all over town. I mean, the first guy I talked to said my brother works at the airport there, and he works with Homeland Security, and they got a UFO last night. And I mean, it was like everybody knew this, but it was probably over a year before anybody got to see the footage outside of that little circle because it was somebody put it on the internet. I still don't know who, and I really don't want to know who because I don't want to end up in some congressional hearing. That's not the type of TV coverage I'm looking for these days. Yeah. But as far as all the other images, I like, for example, there's the object flying over top of the field that has all the cattle in it, and the cattle look spooked.
Yes.
I mean, I go right there and I meet the photographers face to face. I ask them to bring their cell phone, because these days, 90% of the pictures people take gets taken on a cell phone. I ask them to bring the cell phone, and I take their original image directly off of their cell phone. Now, when you do that, there is a lot of metadata in there that you can analyze.
True.
And people would be surprised at how much you can get. Now, anything can be faked, and I am very well aware of that, especially these days. But
of course, and we got to get to our first break. So, you guys, you're listening to me, Heidi Hollis, the Outlander, and we will be right back. Welcome back, everybody. You are listening to me, Heidi Hollis, the Outlander. I have a fantastic guest on this evening, Joshua Warren, and we dropped him at a cliffhanger speaking on how he likes to grab photos directly from people's cell phones so you can get all the metadata. And then, what, Josh?
Well, there's no huge big finish to that, but what I will say is that, it's funny that we live in a day and age now when I know I was sitting recently at a table with a group of friends, and I said, hey guys, little experiment, I'll give $20 to whoever can take the first photograph of this salt shaker. Okay. And everybody goes just clamoring as fast as they can with their phone, right?
That's a fun game.
It actually is, unless you're the one putting out the $20.
Oh, yeah.
Time. But, and so maybe I should say I'll buy a free beer or whatever.
There you go.
I'd probably get the same reaction. And so, the fastest one that we got was 10 seconds. And I was surprised. I thought we might have one even faster than that. But the point is, we now live in a world where everybody can, take a picture within seconds' notice. And you might think, therefore, well, we should have enough prominent footage everywhere in order to definitively say we now have proof of ghosts and aliens and UFOs, et cetera, et cetera. The problem is, that same advance in technology has made it easier than ever for people to hoax and fake things. And so I get sent probably at least 50 to 100 images to take a look at every single week. And so I get to see a lot of the same stuff over and over. I mean, you now have these apps out there which inspire people to fake a ghost photo. They have a whole little menu of fake ghosts you can select and flip to your picture.
Sad, yeah.
And what's funny is that for the average person, I realize they don't mean any harm. They're just having fun. It's literally a little prank for them. But for me, it causes quite a little workload, because I look at this stuff and I do this image analysis stuff for free because I'm interested in it. And if somebody is trying to pull my leg, and I mean, usually I can figure out almost instantly if something is real. But sometimes, I find stuff that I need to research a little bit more. And so I'd say every time I get one good ghost picture or UFO picture, I probably look at 1,000, and so I take it very seriously. And all these images that I put into this video and other things that you'll find that I've put together are the product of not just looking at an image at face value, but analyzing everything I can behind it, getting all the details about the conditions, the weather and the witnesses and control photos and all that, and then talking to the photographer. And so it's important to take all that into consideration when you're looking at what may actually be real visual evidence of something paranormal.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. People don't realize what you've got to put into it when you're involved in fields like this. It's fascinating, it's fun, but then it gets tiresome with all the hoaxsters, and it's like you gotta dig so darn deep in order to get to the good stuff, and then everything's a question. When I share something on Facebook, I always have to put a question mark. So what do you guys think? Because
Right.
it's just Because otherwise, you'll get these people who get really angry, like, you really believe that crap, Heidi? I mean, that's so and so, and I'm like, oh, good Lord, come on, but are we to ignore absolutely everything? How do we know when we come across the really good stuff as amateurs, who don't analyze these things fully? I mean, it's really a shot in the dark, and I think for myself, I don't know where you're at with this, but when it comes to these types of odd stories, I don't really go out to try to prove to people. I'm like, sometimes you got to pull the stuff together and present it and allow them to decide for themselves. I mean, what's your big angle? You're a science guy, so you can do that. You can go there and bring it to people the way that they really need it to. But even then, it's hard. It's uphill battle, isn't it?
Well, that's why what I do in many cases is I will do an experiment. And if I get some kind of just amazing result, then I will go out there and I will present it to others and say, here's what I did. I'm not holding back any secrets. There are no secret herbs and spices. There's no secret sauce here. I'll tell you how I did everything. And so all you have to do is go out there, and now you can do this on your own, and let's see what results that you get. And in fact, I know one of the things that we're going to talk about tonight is this field that I have developed called Parasymatics.
Yeah.
And it ties really nicely into this, because a part of this is me taking some of my results and begging people please go to my website, get this information, use it for free. And this is not some kind of money-making gimmick or anything like that. And send me your results. And in fact, you want me to go ahead and explain what Parasymatics is?
Please do, yeah.
Well, this is to really give you an idea of how this started. I've got to go back to 2010 when I went to Key West, Florida for the first time and did an investigation of Robert the Haunted Doll.
Oh, that ugly thing. Oh, gosh.
Be careful now, Heidi.
I know. You can't insult him. He'll get you.
The average person spends hours a week at the grocery store. But you're not an average person, are you? There's a better way to get fresh groceries, and it's called Fresh Direct. Shop for just picked fruit and vegetables, custom cut meat and seafood, freshly made meals and meal kits, all your favorite brands, plus hundreds of weekly deals. Order Fresh Direct anytime, anywhere, and get the freshest groceries delivered to your door. Use code PLAYLIST to get $25 off your first order of $99 or more. Visit freshdirect.com or download the app today.
Robert is vengeful.
Yes, he is.
And I was talking to my mom about this the other day, and as soon as I said the name, that we lost our phone connection, I was like, Robert. So anyway, Robert the doll, just, he has an extensive story. I won't go into all that, but he's a large doll. He's over 3 feet tall. He's over 100 years old. He is now living at the museum, the East Fort Martello Museum there in Key West. And there have been all kinds of stories over the decades about him coming to life and doing various things, sometimes mischievous, sometimes outright scary. The screenwriter for the movie Child's Play said that he was partly inspired by Robert to produce Chucky. Anyway, Robert the doll, he has this glass case around him. He's very, very prized. And on a side note, I'll mention that there are all these letters that are all just plastered, thousands of letters on the walls from people begging forgiveness because they've gone down there and they've taken his picture without permission, or they've said something flippant about him and then they've had bad luck. And so they write these letters to apologize. So
here we go down the hole. Oh, no.
Yeah. And so when I was there, I was doing a really extensive investigation, and the powers that be were really nice, and they had a couple guys come out with these big suction cups, and they lifted the glass case off of Robert the doll for the first time in years so that I could really get up close and personal and do my investigation. Well, one thing that I wanted to do is, well, I did a lot of stuff, but one thing I
didn't give him a wishing machine. Just tell me you didn't.
No.
Okay, all right.
No, Robert. I don't think Robert needs any help.
Okay.
But I did shine a UV light on him. Now, a lot of people may not realize that glass usually blocks out most UV light, which is why you don't get a sunburn when you're driving down the road and your window's up. So I knew when the glass was off, this was a rare opportunity to shine a UV light on him. And when I did that, this little symbol appeared on the sleeve of his shirt that was otherwise invisible to the naked eye. And this symbol looked a lot to me like kind of a distorted snowflake or something like that. And of course, I could not figure out what it was, why that would be there. And this led me to do a lot of research on symbols. And eventually I came to the conclusion that this looks very much like what magicians for thousands of years have referred to as sigils. And so, and I mean, this goes all the way back to, ancient Hebrew times. They would talk about the sigilum, which meant a seal to affect something or word or action. And so basically, this seemed to be perhaps the product of some type of ultimate stamp that was placed at the end of some type of a magical ritual. Now, the story had always been that there was a woman, some type of a servant who lived in the home of the Otto family, which that's where Robert the doll came from, who was disgruntled and who had done something with this doll to manipulate it. So therefore, I started looking into this whole concept of how that energy can be expressed in symbols. And what I found was that if you take something like an energy form and you focus it and condense it, you literally can turn it into a symbol that is almost like an antenna. So in other words, if you take that energy and condense it into that form, that's one thing. But if you later walk into that form, well, you are also encountering that energy. And that may sound kind of out there, but it's not at all, because I started studying this field, which we now call cymatics. And it really starts with the work of a German scientist named Ernst Chladni, who lived in the late 1700s, early 1800s. He would take a thin piece of metal and sprinkle salt or sand on top of it, and then run a violin bow down the edge and create these beautiful, striking patterns, like these little snowflakes and stuff. Have you seen those types of patterns before?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, and anybody listening who hasn't, just go to YouTube and type in cymatics, Cymatics, and you can get this same effect now. If you take something like a little piece of metal and with sand on it, and you put it over top of a speaker, and you play different tones, and you'll see these different types of patterns appear. So I started experimenting with making patterns using different vibrations and energy tones. And now here I am on an island a lot of the time here in the Bermuda Triangle. So I started doing this with water. So I would take salt water and fresh water and different, sometimes even tonic water, maybe gin and tonic. No, I'm joking. I didn't go that far, but I would never waste a gin and tonic.
I was going to say, what?
Yeah.
Gosh.
And I would play these different patterns and underneath these containers of water and get these or different tones and get these amazing patterns. So then I thought about Robert, and I was like, well, what if I look at this stuff under different forms of light? So I would get these patterns on the surface of the water, and then I would view them under infrared light and ultraviolet light and laser light. And when I would do that, certain new attributes would become visible. And so then I started to wonder, okay, this is kind of when the light bulb went off. What if, instead of me just playing tones and getting these patterns, what if I interwove these tones with specific messages and saw what kind of symbol was created? So the first thing I did was I recorded my own voice saying, I want to attract a ghost here.
You are brazen, dude. What the heck?
That's a nice way of putting it. Other people have not been so complimentary.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
Oh.
And, so I took a picture of the pattern that appeared and then turned that into a symbol. And my wife, Lauren, went to bed, and she is not into the paranormal like I am at all. She will enjoy hearing my stories, after the fact, over a martini or something. But she's not one to go out in the field and do this stuff. She went to bed, and me, not being the husband of the year, went up and put the sigil on the bedroom door.
Oh my God! You live to tell this story. This is fascinating.
Now,
oh, boy.
I'm often up all night, working on various things. And that night, I think I was just watching a movie or something. So I came down. Here I am at 4:30 in the morning watching TV. She's a very sound sleeper, never wakes up and comes down in the middle of the night. She comes down the stairs and she said, "Have you been coming in the bedroom?" I said, "Nope. Why?" And she said, "Well, there must be a ghost in here then, because something keeps shoving me and waking me up and it's freaking me out." And I'm like, "Yes!" So I told her what I'd done, and she was not happy about that. So that was the end of putting the ghost sigil up. But I was so amazed by what had happened. I started making a series of these things. The next one, I was like, well, for me, I always think if you're going to experiment and you're really going to see if something's working, go to the casino and try to beat the odds. Because there is nothing more raw and real world than the casino as a laboratory, because you go in there, they're not playing around, they're just trying to keep your money.
Yeah.
So I created a sigil. I'm attracting a flow of money. And I took that with me to the casino, and within the first 15 minutes of being there, I had 2 jackpots back to back.
Come on.
Now, at this point, I'm like, this is actually real. Something is actually happening here. And so I started making more of these sigils. And I just started making these in April. I haven't been doing this that long. And I put these sigils on my website. I've been telling people every time I get a chance, if I go on a radio show, I say, look, go to my website. What you do is you'll find some sigils there on the homepage if you scroll down. They look really bizarre because this is what Mother Nature produced in the water when I played these tones. Yep. There's also a link you can click that gives you a list of updated ones. Take one of these things, either put it on your device, like your phone or your computer, or print it out and put it in a place where you'll look at it 4 or 5 times per day, and then let me know what happens.
They look like dancing lizards. I'm looking at them now.
I have heard a lot of weird descriptions, but dancing lizards, I'll take that. That sounds like they're very weird. And I'm telling you, I have gotten so many emails from people telling me about these amazing experiences they've had with money, with love, with psychic experiences. That's another one. Okay, I made one for psychic experiences. I put it over my bed, and I dream a lot anyway, very vividly. But I had a dream that one of my neighbors right down the way here moved. Just something totally mundane to me. And then I get up the next day and I see them dragging furniture out. And I went over, and sure enough, they had decided to move. Just like stuff like that. I've gotten so many positive testimonials. I'm about to put up a web page that's got all these different quotes from what people are writing me. And I've got 2 people who say they're actually now tattooing some of these.
Oh, come on.
Swear to God.
Oh, now that's interesting. I wonder what part of the body are going to put some of these. It's like, I don't know if I want a big goose to buy a ghost. I don't know if I'd put a tramp stamp of that ghost sigil there. It's like there's a lot of big variety what you can do with that. What this reminds me of? I love the book Secret Life of Water. I'm sure you've seen that. Masaru Emoto, I believe, is the author of that. And what he did was subject water to hate and love, and then he froze it, crystallized it, and took pictures of the crystals that they formed. And if it was anger or hate, they were distorted. They were broken. And when it was love and joy, beautiful sparkles of look like snowflakes, just just really cool stuff. It's like we really are a part of our environment, and we do influence our environment, and our environment influences us. And I think once we begin to realize that very spiritual and I don't know, energy that surrounds us and link up to it, I think that, sky's the limit. And it's so cool, the stuff that you've been able to tap into, because I think that it was actually your videos on these somatics that I first seen. And what was that with the leaf? What is that photography called that you were doing where you'd cut off a part of the leaf and you took pictures? I'm like, that freaking Josh is cool. Look at that.
Yeah, Kirlian photography. Yeah,
that's Kirlian. It. Yes. Oh, just fascinating stuff. I mean, your wife, she's a strong woman. She's a strong woman. But yes, whenever she wonders what you're doing, just say, just paying the bills, hon. Earning my keep. That's all.
Exactly what I say.
Do you?
Yes. I like, somebody's got to make the money around here. And
funny. Oh my gosh.
No, but what's interesting is that honestly, I've been self-employed now since I was 18 years old, and I've done that by doing what I love. It's like doing this kind of research, writing books that people actually read, giving speaking presentations that people actually pay to go see. I have tours that run in Asheville. I have museums, and I realized a long time ago that if I'm not doing stuff that's really innovative and interesting, nobody's going to care. Nobody's going to pay for it. And so that gives me motivation, because I'm always trying to come up with good stuff. And I realized that if I promote something that's just a bunch of BS, very quickly, I will just pull the steam right out of any prospect that I have to continue doing good research, because I depend on the support of the people, and I depend on good folks like you who will have me on your radio program and talk about this. And so sometimes I come up with an idea for something that's super weird, and I'm a little afraid because I think, okay, this makes sense to me, but am I going to be able to explain this properly when I'm trying to tell other folks what I'm up to here?
That's the joy. That's the joy of all this.
Yeah. And so I love interactive things like this, where I can say, look, you use this thing, and then you tell me what happens. Now, I know if you want to look at this from like a devil's advocate point of view, you can say, well, okay, let's say 1,000 people take, let's say, the money sigil, and let's say 100 people have some type of success and 900 don't. Well, you're most likely going to hear from the people who do, so that might give you a skewed dynamic. But the difference is, the people who are contacting me and telling me that they're having success are not just having success. They're having things that are so profound that they just come totally out of left field. I mean, that's what I love about these emails. People write me and they're like, look, this was impossible. Like, this couldn't happen. And yet it happened within a day, And so it's not just the fact that it happens, it's the way in which it happens. And so by getting everybody sort of involved, I'm able to take something which otherwise can't necessarily be quantified and do my best to sort of gauge these things. And that's what we do with the wishing machine as well. I mean, there are thousands and thousands of people all around the world in just about every country you can imagine, even countries I've never even heard of before, that have bought one of our wishing machines. And if they use it properly, and of course that means you have to wish for things that are within the bounds of nature. You can't wish to fly like Superman or, live forever or whatever. But if you wish for things properly, then, I mean, it's an incredible tool that helps these things materialize very quickly. And so, but there's no way to scientifically put that under a microscope, because every human being is unique. Every human being's circumstances are unique. And so the best we can do is get feedback. And what we find is that, these areas that we're dealing with, they blur the line sometimes between like Newtonian physics. For every action, there's an opposite but equal reaction, and the impact that consciousness makes on all this. And it's funny because, we started talking about the OUFOs and how ultimately they relate to consciousness. Now we're talking about this other thing, which may seem unrelated, but it is related, because Parasymatics is also about how consciousness produces that non-physical mold that reshapes the physical world.
My brain just exploded. You know what? I am dying to know if any politicians bought your wishing machine. I'm just throwing that out there, just randomly.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because I will tell you this. Even though I do have a strict policy of honoring our customers' anonymity if they want it, through the election process, I saw a lot of familiar last names coming in as the orders.
No.
Yeah. And seriously, and so I mean, I struggled with the ethics of like, should I mention this on Facebook because this is really interesting, or not? And I figured I better not. But sure enough, that's a very good question. And yes, I saw a lot of familiar last names.
Ooh, the plot thickens. Putin? No, I'm just kidding. Oh.
He already has one. He probably invented the damn thing.
He probably did. My gosh, it's not like people are going to vote anyways. So, I mean, gosh, he's already got an in. That's just mind-blowing. But, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, might as well, I can imagine a whole lot of wishes being put out there for such a thing. But we're going to get to our next break. You guys, you're listening to me, Heidi Hollis, the Outlander, and we will be right back. Welcome back, everybody. You're listening to me, Heidi Hollis, the Outlander. Remembering, always if it's weird, we're here. And we have got Joshua Warren. We're talking about everything under the sun, and I'm not kidding. This man, if you can imagine it, witness it, this man has dug deep into it and written about it. So I guess that's kind of why I think of you like a bro of some sort. I don't know. And because I got to know you on a different level, hanging out with you at times, and I don't know. You're a really, really like easy person to know and to like, and I think a lot of people appreciate how approachable you are and how real you are, and how you go about presenting the topics that you do. So I mean I think it's quite unique to the field. So kudos to you, Josh.
Well, thank you very much for saying that, because as soon as I met you, I mean, it was like instantly we were on the same wavelength.
Yeah.
And I think a part of it is, for one thing, you can be interested in this field, but you're never going to get it unless you actually understand that there's something inherently absurd about all of this.
And you can laugh at yourself, too, about it,
Yeah. And so you have that great warmth and charm that exudes all around you. And you and I would just sit around and laugh till tears streaming about some of these things that, it's just like, a part of it is almost sort of understanding how arrogant that most people are to think that they actually understand what the heck is going on here. I mean... Yeah. How silly are people to believe, well, this is impossible because I was raised this way. Well, okay, good for you. But you can look at any previous generation, not even that far ago. I mean, like maybe 10 years ago, and look at what they knew about the world, and it's dramatically different now.
Yes.
And in some cases, I mean, I was talking the other day as well. I mentioned I have some online paranormal investigation classes that I do now. They're all pre-recorded. But one of the things I was talking about is that scientists didn't acknowledge the existence of dinosaurs until the 1800s. And dinosaurs they've always been here as long as we've been here. But in the past, if somebody would uncover some kind of big, crazy looking skeleton, they're like, there once was dragons here, and so everybody blew it off as being some kind of foolishness. But no, in reality, there were dragons. I mean, you can go to the museum and see them now. We call them pterodactyls or whatever. But
yeah.
So And then if I'm not mistaken, up until like the 1990s, we only believed that the only planets were the planets in our own solar system. And then all of a sudden, boom, now there is an infinite number of planets all over the universe. So it's amazing how people continue to believe their own point of view is the right one. And I think, again, that's something you and I have in common, is that we are humble enough to realize that no matter how much research that we do, we don't know everything, and there's a lot to be learned, and that's what makes it fun and exciting.
So true. Oh my gosh. I swear I'm going to, my next move, and this is, I almost did this. I almost bought a place in Puerto Rico, and then I heard you moved to Puerto Rico. I'm like, if I knew that dude was there, I'd be going over there all the time and just cracking up and having way too much fun. But
yes.
It's not off the table yet. I mean, honestly, I would like a change, but I'm in Chicago. Come on. But I think it's anybody that claims to have all the answers and knows 100% of everything. I mean, just run. It's not true. It's not happening. And and I think the more that we rely upon each other, as human beings, and take people's word for things sometimes, when you interview people and you hear their heartfelt pleas about what it is that they've experienced, sometimes that's proof enough for me in understanding a different element of, because I've been there where I've experienced something so just bizarre. I know that people couldn't relate. And then to see that same expression coming out of somebody, like, you just know when you hit that it's real. For others, maybe not, but that's why it's so important to, just present it and say, take it for what it is and, make your own decision. So I applaud, anybody that goes into this field and could do what you do. I mean, I don't know many people who could say that they can rely upon their work in this field as, getting by in this life. That's cool, because one day, Josh, if I ever get to that point, I would love to be able to do it to help more people. That's my whole goal, reaching more people and opening up their eyes to the real reality that we're all a part of. And I feel that that's part of, what drives you as well. I mean, it's for curiosity's sake, and it's for mankind's sake.
Well, that's right. And what you find is that it really does go hand in hand. I mean, that if you're doing something good that people find valuable, that makes their lives better, then they will stick with you. Oh, yeah. And what's funny is that when it comes to all this paranormal research, it's easy to say, okay, well, look at something like the wishing machine or Parasymatics. And you hear me talking about using it to make money, to go to the casino and to win and stuff like that. It's easy for somebody to say, well, this guy, he's just interested in the money, But the reality is, why should we be doing any kind of research if ultimately the benefit is not to improve lives?
Yeah.
And so it doesn't matter how you're doing that, if you're doing it through getting money or improving your relationships or even, your health for that matter, which is something that I don't talk very much about because I'm not a doctor. But nonetheless, if, all this, the whole point of learning new things is to benefit life, to make your life better. Yeah. And I realized a long time ago, I can put together some kind of big crazy rig and use it to try to create a tulpa or a ghost or some kind of creepy thing. And I've done that many times. As a matter of fact, in 2012, there was a Warner Brothers horror movie that came out called The Apparition. And I was hired to be a consultant on that movie. And the Blu-ray extras have just tons of different pieces showing me and my team in the lab trying to turn on, various types of Tesla coils and Van de Graaff generators and sync all this stuff up while inputting a desire to create an apparition, et cetera, et cetera. But what I'm getting at here is you can use all these experiments to try to manifest a ghost or a UFO or some kind of weird thing. But what you find out is that you can also use these exact same kinds of techniques to manifest the normal stuff that we all need. a happy life and the resources to live that happy life. So it's not just restricted to one area. And so anybody who gets into this whole subject matter is really somebody who ought to be interested in manifestation in general. As you mentioned in my bio, it's about that relationship between matter and energy and all the different ways that those things can interact and materialize.
Something that we're chatting about over the break. Now, when it comes to your wishing machine, and if people say, I don't know, people running for office happen to own one and are wishing for the same thing, how do they work that way?
Yeah, this is a really interesting question that Dr. Mulder, who makes the wishing machines, and I deal with a lot. For one thing, if you have the Super Bowl, for example, and there's only two options, either this team's going to win or that team's going to win. If you have people on one side that are using wishing machines and people on the other side using wishing machines, well, what happens then? And what we find is that it really, to a certain extent, now there are obviously other variables involved, such as skill and talent and all that, but as far as the intent is concerned, at that point, it really does become a matter of this variable of intent and the strength and power of it and the collective amount of it versus the other one. And that's why we tell people all the time, if you're going to use a wishing machine, people ask us, they say, can I hit the lottery with this? And I always say, look, it's not good to use these things for hitting the lotto. People have hit the lotto using them. That has happened. But the problem with the lotto is you have essentially, one big prize, and you have thousands or millions of people who are focusing on that one thing. And so what that does is it breaks the odds down and it gives you a smaller percentage. You're much, much better off to go into a casino where there are lots of different machines and everybody's attention is distributed all over the place. It's a lot easier to go in and manipulate one particular game at one particular time than it is to focus on one big prize. I've often said it's one thing if you want to have, you want to wish for an Aston Martin, that's no big deal. But if you want, the Aston Martin DB3 or whatever that Sean Connery drove in the movie Goldfinger,
right?
Now you're getting so specific. There are a lot of people that you're up against with in terms of intent, because these are mind-powered machines. But furthermore, you have to realize that there are two other important things to point out. Number one, sometimes what you think will make you happy is not actually what will make you happy. In my book, Use the Force, I wrote about a man who lived, I believe, in Chicago, Heidi, who won a $300 million Powerball and was generous and bought houses for his family and friends.
The average person spends hours a week at the grocery store, but you're not an average person, are you? There's a better way to get fresh groceries, and it's called Fresh Direct. Shop for just picked fruit and vegetables, custom cut meat and seafood, freshly made meals and meal kits, all your favorite brands, plus hundreds of weekly deals. Order Fresh Direct anytime, anywhere, and get the freshest groceries delivered to your door. Use code PLAYLIST to get $25 off your first order of $99 or more. Visit freshdirect.com or download the app today.
And cars and all that. But one of his in-laws thought that she was not treated generously enough, and so she and her boyfriend hatched a scheme, and they kidnapped this guy and held him for ransom, and things went awry, and so they ended up killing him.
Oh, typical Chicagoans. I mean, what are we talking about? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
So you have that to deal with. But here's the thing that's even more interesting, and I was talking to Dr. Mulder about this the other day, and by the way, that's not his real name, but Dr. Mulder, the man who makes these wishing machines, he is very, very particular about his privacy, because you can imagine when you get a reputation for being the guy who makes the wishing machines, people will beat a path to your door and crawl on your window. So he and I were talking about the fact that we have a lot of cases like this one, for example, where there was a lady who bought a wishing machine, and she said, I hate my job, and I'm not making enough money, and I need a complete, change of lifestyle. And so it's like, okay, great. So she got the machine, she got the instructions, and then she contacted us a couple weeks later and was really angry. And she goes, man, this machine is terrible. It did the exact opposite of what I got fired from my job. She goes, now I can, I don't even have anything coming in anymore. And so we were like, well, just be patient, So a couple weeks later, she emails us and she goes, oh my God, I got the job of my dreams. I'm now making more money than ever. I have never been so happy. And she goes down this whole big list of how great things have worked out. And what she and a lot of people don't realize is that if you make a wish or you're trying to manifest something and you're serious about it, if you really want to change in your life, the only way that's going to happen is for the old life to first break down so that the new life can be born. And so it's natural for people to panic a little bit when you go through that transitional phase, which is one thing that I wrote a whole chapter about this and use the Force. And so you have to understand that when you wish for these things, they're not, especially if it's something big, it's not necessarily going to just materialize like leprechaun gold and fall at your feet. That there's a process that will take place, and it's a deconstruction that will very quickly lead to a reconstruction, and that's how reality brings this stuff to you.
It makes sense. When I think about, when people go to hone in and pray for you or something along those lines, and like, if there was an amplifier for prayers, I would be passing it out and saying, everybody just put your finger in this box and pray and put it in there so I could get all the good mojo to focus the way I want it. I mean, it sounds like it's an amplifier of good vibes. And what could be so wrong about that? I'm all for it if it's helping people. And it's interesting when you're talking about the lady and how people might panic, like, they want something to happen so bad, and they think what's a catastrophe that's going to rip them down was actually, kicking a stone out of the way so a mountain could form, and it's kind of cool. I'm not kidding you. I was looking for something today, and I'm like, oh, I just can't believe I can't find this other thing, and I'm just looking all over, and I'm in a rush. I'm trying to get somewhere, and had I not been looking for that, I wouldn't have stumbled across something that I really needed for this weekend that I'm leaving town for, and I'm like, that's why it happened right there. That's you think you got things figured out, and it's like, nope. God wanted that to happen the way it did because now I've got this, and things are even better. So I think this life is interesting in how that things pulled together. I wanted to get to a question that the people have been popping up some questions in the chat room. I apologize, guys, but there's one that popped up in regards to the OUFOs. This is from Max, I believe, and they're asking if you think that there is a power source beneath the water, like pyramids or something in that area, Puerto Rico, where these craft are being seen.
Yeah, that's a great question because we do have some underwater imaging that actually is taken from work that NOAA has done that shows some very artificial looking shapes under the water off the coast of Puerto Rico in various places. There has long been talk about bases here, and I've gone out with fishermen who have lived here their entire lives, and all of them have stories about seeing submarines and things like that, but sometimes you talk to somebody who tells you a story that just, really blows your mind, that seems very believable and authentic, and most of it has to do with seeing one of these things fly in or out of the water and then zip off into space. And so there must be some kind of a power supply. I've never seen a particular pyramid down there under the water, but there are certainly structures down there that look different than what the forces of nature would produce on their own.
I hope it's not something like from the Pacific Rim movie, some big monsters are going to come out. And we're running so close on time. I wanted to get to your projects. You've got a couple of shows coming out later this year. One of them you could speak on, one of them you can't. So let's get to it. What's the name of the one that you can talk about?
Yeah, well, there is a series that is now scheduled to debut on the History Channel July 11th called American Ripper. And just to show you the diversity of things that I'm interested in, this is a show that explores the possibility that H.H. Holmes, who is considered America's first serial killer, may have actually been connected to the Jack the Ripper murders in London. And there's a lot more to it. It's an 8-part series. And I work behind the scenes on that one as an associate producer. It's really based upon the life story of my friend Jeff Mudgett, who found out that he was a direct descendant of H.H. Holmes. And so, as I was telling you on off the air, I really enjoy working behind the scenes because I don't have to like work out or lose weight or anything. I can just.
I hear you.
Yeah. And so, that'll be coming out July 11th. And it was actually going to originally air in April, but some really amazing stuff happened at the last minute, which I will be killed if I spoiled this, that made the network decide to delay it a little bit. So now next month, put that one on your DVR, July 11th, sure. American Ripper. And then then the other one is something that's going to come out around Halloween, and that one I'm actually going to be filming that one toward the end of next month. So I'm going to be out in Los Angeles for a while doing that. But that one is, it's one of those that a little Halloween surprise that I'm not allowed to talk about. But nice. So those two things are upcoming. And also I'd like for all of your listeners to know that if you go to my website, you can find a spot there where you can sign up for my free e-newsletter. And if you do that, for one thing, immediately you will receive an email that contains what I consider a good luck charm. And furthermore, from there on, I will send you updates on new experiments, new sigils that I produce as over time, because I have a lot more Parasymatics experiments coming, some more video reports, all that kind of stuff. So that's really I really love my e-newsletter list. I've got a lot of subscribers who've stuck with me for many years, and so hopefully some of your listeners will go there to joshuapwarren.com and sign up.
Very cool. I bet you get asked this a lot, but I had a couple of questions in the chat room asking if you're related to the Warrens, Lorraine and Ed.
Yeah, I do get asked that from time to time, but I am not related to them. In fact, it's kind of funny because I was doing research for years before, I don't know how I just never came across their work. And then eventually I ended up getting to meet Lorraine Warren in Chicago, actually. We were both speaking at a conference up there. Just a wonderful, just nice, lovely lady. But I, believe it or not, one time I did a little search of my own name on the internet, and I came across a website with a discussion board where there were a bunch of people saying nasty things about me, and they were saying, this guy just makes up the name Warren because he's trying to ride the coattails of Ed and Lorraine Warren. And I was like, this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life. Joshua Warren is my real name. And I have never tried to pretend anything otherwise, but it just shows you how conspiratorial some people can be.
People are very bored out there, honestly. Yeah. Some of the things they dream up, I'm like, really? Where'd that come from? I mean, sometimes it's very comical and it's good popcorn food stuff.
Yeah.
Just to watch and read and go, oh, okay, let's go there. So what's next for you that you are really wanting to dig your heels into? I mean, you've got the sky's the limit for you. There is no limit when it comes to mysteries. What would you really dream to dig into at some point?
Well, I always feel that I just have not been spending enough time in the lab. And so there are two things that I'm going to be doing over the next year. One of them is I'm going to be doing some much more elaborate parasymatics projects in my laboratory in North Carolina. The second thing is I'm a part of a project called the Mobius mission that we were going to start this past spring, but we're kind of holding off a little bit because we're waiting for some technology to be perfected. Basically, the Mobius mission is going to be an endeavor to take a series of different paranormal hotspots around at least North America, UFO hotspots and ghost hotspots, go to those places and rig them up with a circle, a ring of virtual reality cameras that are running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, so that when and if something paranormal occurs, we will literally have this thing captured from every single angle, 360 degrees, and we will also have some instrumentation there that will show us what is happening in the environment. And if we actually get so let's say a full-bodied apparition from every single angle, and it's affecting the instrumentation in the room, and everybody involved has to take a lie detector test to prove that there's no hoaxing or no funny business going on. This, to me, will be absolute proof that ghosts exist, because we should have passed that boundary long ago, but there are still people who don't believe ghosts are real. Well, this will prove at least as much as we can possibly prove ghosts are real, because I don't have that Ghostbusters trap that I can kind of suck them into and release them.
Darn it all.
Museum. But this is the next best thing. So you'll be hearing a lot more about the Mobius mission over the next year if everything goes as planned.
Sounds good. You know what? This is how I imagine you 20 years from now. Yeah, I hope you've seen the cartoon Rick and Morty, okay? Have you seen that cartoon?
No, I haven't. I'm sorry.
It's crazy. Oh my gosh, you gotta look it up. It's like the nutty professor, crazy grandpa that's inventing things, and he's going into outer space, and he's dragging his grandchild along. Hilarious. Look it up. You'll love it. But that I think you are a Rick and Morty. Yeah, I really do. Well, Josh, I have to thank you so much for coming on the show tonight. This was just fantastic and fun as always. I could do this every freaking day, just chatting it up with you. You're easy peasy.
Well, you are a fantastic host and a great researcher and just a wonderful person. And thank you so much for having me on your show tonight. I know we'll be working together on some projects in the near future. So always fun to be with you, my friend. Thank you, Heidi.
Yes, thank you. Hold the line for 1 second. I'm going to close the show. You guys, we have come to the bottom of another fun show. I can't thank you guys enough for tuning in. Remember, you can catch me here every Friday, 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern. You've been listening to me, Heidi Hollis, the Outlander. Remembering, always if it's weird, we're here. Good night, everybody.
The average person spends hours a week at the grocery store, but you're not an average person, are you? There's a better way to get fresh groceries, and it's called Fresh Direct. Shop for just picked fruit and vegetables, custom cut meat and seafood, freshly made meals and meal kits, all your favorite brands, plus hundreds of weekly deals. Order Fresh Direct anytime, anywhere, and get the freshest groceries delivered to your door. Use code PLAYLIST to get $25 off your first order of $99 or more. Visit freshdirect.com or download the